Welcome to Rico 12. My name is Justin, and I am a child of an all-powerful and all-loving God and a recovering addict, and am blessed to be the host of this meeting and podcast. Rico 12 is an organization with the mission of learning and sharing the similarities of addictions of all kinds and gaining and sharing tools and hope from others who are walking this path. We come together from all places, faiths, and backgrounds to gain tools and hope from others who are walking a similar path. Speakers from our past meetings have represented so many fellowships, addictions, and afflictions, and we look forward to continuing to add to the diversity of speakers and backgrounds. Today's speaker for our 190th meeting is Timber M, whose topic is entitled My Spiritual Journey of Self-Discovery. And we'll get to his talk in the Q&A afterwards in just a minute, but first for a little bit of business. The Rico 12 family of recovery resources continues to grow and have more resources for the addict and the loved ones of those addicted. I invite you to go and listen to and subscribe to the other Rico 12 podcasts, including Rico 12 Noodle It Out with Nikki M, which is the most recent release, which we had released, which releases every Tuesday. And we also have the Rico 12 Big Book Roundtable, which releases every Thursday, where we just finished up diving into the forward of the third edition of the Big Book of Alcoholics Anonymous. I highly recommend you go check those out. Also, we have the Rico 12 Shares podcast, and I'm super excited about all of these resources and more to come. Your donations and subscriptions are making this all possible, as there are costs to build and maintain them. On that note, Rico 12 is a self-supporting service, and we appreciate your help in keeping us working our Step 12 in this manner. I want to thank a few of our spearheads and donors who have joined the spearhead ranks recently. Thank you to Sushi's, to Eric, and to Duncan for your donations. Those really help in our mission to share this message with others. And if you out there would like to become a spearhead and support Rico 12 and our mission, please consider going to rico12.com/support. and making either a one-time donation or becoming a monthly spearhead donor. We look forward each week to receiving from the light reflected from our speakers. That light inspires hope, meaning, worth, and growth in us, the listening audience. Now I'm going to introduce today's guest speaker, Timber M. Timber M has experience with detoxes, hospitals, treatment centers, building and crashing his multiple recovery networks while always seeking out an authentic life that makes sense for him. Being heavily involved in 12-step recovery fellowships, sponsoring and being sponsored in AA, NA, CA, as well as SLA and CODA in Canada and the US, and most recently DA, his last relationship demise brought him to feeling suicidal and returning to heroin. As a writer, actor, and musician, Timber has returned to living a life where he finds being grateful is the key. Take it away, Timber. The floor is yours.
Wow, that's quite the introduction. But I think I wrote it, so that is pretty egotistical and self-promotional, which I always have to stay away from. So good day, citizens. My name's Timber M, and I'm coming to you live and direct from just north of Toronto, Ontario, Canada, in the Kawartha Lakes area, Peterborough region. Not that that matters, because we all live on Zoom and we go all over the world. But my topic is kind of vague. I've sort of been through the ringer, as we all have, and have kind of really gone up and down for the last 30 years since trying to recover. I guess it was my late 20s. I'm in my mid 50s now. And I started realizing that, basically step one for me is I'm fucked. Like I was just out of ideas. I didn't know what else to do. I tried everything else, as I'm sure a lot of people have, and they talk about, the logs that we try and cling on to try and keep ourselves afloat, whether that's, some psychiatry, working out, vitamins, different friends, I'll just use a little bit, like whatever the hell the case is. I'm sure I tried everything. And I think one of the things I want to talk about today is just, if you've arrived here today, I mean, chances are it's not by a fluke. Like, you pretty much belong here. Not a lot of people want to chime into an hour-long Zoom meeting and hear some goofball talk for an hour. I mean, the idea that you're here is you're looking for an answer. You're looking to connect spiritually and to develop your relationship to the world. So I'm sure there's some people who are on here pretty new to the whole deal, and there's other people who have gone through this thing extensively, and they just want to, connect, because it's a disease, for me anyway, of isolation, and the opposite of that is connection. So, as I said, I'm in my mid 50s. I started running around in my 20s. I was throwing a lot of warehouse late night dance parties in Toronto. And embarrassingly, it's kind of the old adage of like, okay, well, just I started with this and it led to that and led to that. And, what started with, doing some ecstasy turned to occasional cocaine and turned to, I moved to Los Angeles and, experimented a little bit with heroin because I trusted someone. And it took a while. I moved back to Toronto and started doing it on occasion, just sniffing it because that's my justification and rationale. It's like, at least I'm not shooting it. It's no big deal. And, I've always just wanted to use heroin like normal people. And then you find out, well, normal people don't use heroin predominantly. Not a lot of the normal people I know, whatever normal is. So, um, yeah, so I tried to recover. I think in 2000, I moved out to Orange County, California, where there's a pretty big recovery network out there, a lot of young kids, because they start really early out there, living a life by the time they're 14, 15, 16, that like a lot of us have never even seen. That's how it is in California. And so I connected to this really great recovery program out there. It was predominantly AA at first. I did go to some NA meetings and CA meetings, but it's all 12-step based recovery. And I've learned that since this past 6 months, getting hooked up with spiritual gangsters and a new sponsor, Adam S., who I actually knew from AA Zoom meetings in Toronto. It's funny because we never really got along. I think we saw each other as egotistical maniacs, kind of. So we never really chatted much, like over line, but we saw each other share in these meetings. So he brought me to meeting Nikki. Nikki is my grand sponsor. And so, yeah, so all these things I was in a detox like 6 months ago. I had turned back to heroin, and this relationship that I thought was pretty snazzy and wonderful and exciting and great and nourishing and enriching. And I thought I was, being unselfish and adapting all the spiritual principles from the program. And look at me, I'm respecting her home and I'm being, whatever it is. And then she one day just said, okay, I'm done. This isn't working. And I just lost it. Like, I was just like, what? And I threw everything into us. I wasn't doing any recovery work at all. And so that took me back out for a while because that's where I go, that place of just self-pity and fears, and I'm not getting enough, not getting what I want, fear of losing what I have. And I just felt horrible and shitty. And yeah, so I just acted out like horribly for a few weeks. I showed up at my dad's grave saying like, I'm done. Coincidentally, that's what she said to me, but I told my father, I said, like, I can't do this anymore. I've tried my best in this life, and I've tried to sought out an existence that I thought I could keep afloat with in the artistic world, and I have gifts and talents and things, but I just haven't found a place for them, and I'm frustrated, and life for me is, I don't know how to do it anymore. So that's the last time. That was within the last 6 months. And I found myself in this detox because I did throw up my hands and be like, I don't know what the fuck to do. So that was kind of a Hail Mary of like, just, okay, like, it's not about someone else accepting me or, telling me what my self-worth is. I've got to somehow, show up. The gift of desperation, really, I think that's important to mention, because if you show up without contempt prior to investigation, as they say, like when you show up and, let me have a new experience with this whole deal, then that's a great place to be. Because if you have the gift of desperation and you're at the point where, look, just tell me what to do, and, I'll wake up and just pray to whatever, like, I don't even know if I have a concept, whatever. I just wake up and please ask for help and show me how to live, and just go about your day and get going with step work and start going to some meetings to try and get that connection and living differently. And if you can do that, then you're halfway there. You're on the journey, you're on the path. And that's also what I want to speak about today, is that, I mean, just arriving here is wonderful. And just when I work with guys, it's great because I tell them, like, certainly I want to be supportive and want to give them, props and kudos for like actually getting here and like wanting to do the work and printing out a workbook and showing up with your big book and ready to underline and muck it up and write things and, listen and converse and share with me your story. And like, that's all wonderful. Like, that's half the battle. So that's pretty great. And I did that with my sponsor, Adam. Like, he said he would take me through the work. And he said that a lot of this stuff that I'm dealing with has a lot to do with my relationships, my relationship to the world, all the looking at all the entanglements I've had with girls over time, like being overly needy and clingy with them, overly relying on them, like to take care of me, and just allowing me to keep acting out, using, not taking responsibility, all that stuff. So that's how I ended up in kind of Codependence Anonymous and Sex Love Addicts and all that, because that's kind of underneath. So yeah, basically I'm a mess and need a lot of programs. I'm not sure which one is that, but it's in this spiritual gangster fellowship. It's all, as I said, 12-step base. So whether you're a drug addict or just fall back on like porn and relationships and act out and just buying stuff you can't afford, or just whatever your deal is that if you can get a sponsor or find someone that has what you want, whether you see them on Zoom or in a live meeting where you come to the table and you see them, it's like, wow, they were really like screwed and now they're not. And it's like, how did they get there? It's like, wow, like they speak to me. There's something that they're saying, whether you see them share in a meeting or whatever, that resonates with me. And it's like, and unless you have that kind of eagerness, like it is hard to, like, why would you do stuff that someone is suggesting to you? And they are suggestions, but suggestions in the way like, it's suggested you have like a backpack when you jump out of a plane. Like that's a good suggestion. So certainly, I mean, we look at these things as we're trying to save your life, right? And I don't want to say like I shouldn't be here or I have no reason to be here, but I look, it's when I give a kind of talk like this and I look at 30 years of living really dangerous and overdoses and having staph infections and being on methadone and being in a detox center and lying and stealing from my mom, and lots of fresh starts. And then the self-sabotage comes up and I go back to the familiar pattern again. Why? I don't even know, and I don't even know if it's necessarily important why I do that. It's just like I want to do something different. I arrive at this program, and as I said, I hooked up with Adam S, and I started doing the step work. And I was eager and had the gift of desperation. And I sat at my mom's dining room table, and it's like, okay, how do you want me to do this? And I printed out this workbook, and I was all ready to go. And I got like a big book, and made my columns and talked about what was unmanageable, and just wrote and wrote and wrote. And I am a writer. I write articles and have for some time, like essays, and I wrote a book and all that stuff, which is all probably speaks to egomania. But that's the way I share myself with the world. I have a passion for writing music and sharing that. And I have a passion for writing and sharing that. And, that's really great. So it wasn't too hard I'm just talking about the writing aspect. It wasn't too hard to sit and write about a lot of stuff that was going on. And once I got to the fourth column and I looked at these are all these defects, these are flaws of mine, these are shortcomings that have stayed with me a long time. And you write them down and just try and think of, okay, who do I have resentments against? Like anyone at all, and try to do that. And then you look at all the patterns and all this stuff that I've had for so many years. And then I'd go to the fears column and look at all the fears and again, it's, I'm afraid of losing what I have. I'm afraid of not getting what I want. I'm fear of criticism, fear of abandonment, I have all these in spades. And I'm saying that with a program even you go to your fifth column and, okay, how do I want to be in the world? What is these spiritual principles that I want to adapt. What's the opposite of this thing? If I'm selfish, certainly, yeah, it's like the prayer of Saint Francis, like the opposite. If I'm selfish, I want to be unselfish. If I'm, ego, it's about how can I be of service? How can I help others? And these, I check these things, these motivations. Is it pure? Is it honest? Is it true? Is it based in self? Am I being manipulative? So that's one thing that I feel, if you talk about what the program has done for me, how have I changed since coming here? It by no means, it's not like you come here and you're fixed, or things get easier right away, or 30 years of acting out suddenly is like, oh, you just do that. Like, it's just not that way, not for me anyway. Like, my experience, and that's all I have. And they say my experience is my best asset. I guess that's what I bring to the table, all the different ways to not do this. And yeah, like, I just haven't been able to do it consistently. I've had a lot of starts and stops, a lot of, like, taking vitamins and going to work out, and getting some sun and going to the beach, and reaching out to others, and look at me, I'm doing well. And then, I don't know, a couple months go by and I just do what I do, which is stop going to meetings, stop reaching out, just think about what I want to do, and why isn't this person texting me back, and why doesn't she feel this way about me? And then I over obsess, and then I'm just back to the beginning. And that's been my life for a long time. So yeah, I wanted to speak about that. If this thing is going to ebb and flow, and as they say, this is not an overnight matter. It just isn't. Like, recently I've been throwing myself into this relationship, and it's healthy. Like, I check myself. It's like, okay, am I doing this because I want her just to love me and stuff, or is it like I truly want to be of service? I just want to, like, be of help when I'm over here. And so I've gotten away from attending the amount of meetings that I was going to before. I'm working with less guys. I had like 4 guys on the go and one lady in the States I was working with, and then, I don't know, it's down to 1 or 2 now. And life started to happen, and it is happening, and that's all good stuff. But I'm just saying, it's just like, I wake up each day and I try and be a better guy. And that's what it's about for me. Just, I might fall short a lot of the time, but I have a program to live up to. And I know it's not like I don't have the knowledge. I don't have the information. Like, I know the way to be. I know not to be in self. I know to, like, when I'm driving, in my passenger seat is the spirit or God or whatever. It's like, that's my GPS. Like, I drive. I'm the one who needs to, I have to want this thing. I have to want to do it. And I do have to have, like, activity, zeal, as they talk about, and the energy and focus to do this thing. And the whole thing with, I don't know, everyone's at different places with their God. It's probably not interesting to you what my God is, just as, like, I could care less what yours is. It just doesn't matter as long as it's not you. And I have a bit of problems with that. Like, the last thing I enjoy is at meetings, and this is my judgmentalness and critique, is just hearing people regurgitate the same passages out of the big book. And it's like, I don't know, it just doesn't resonate with me. And I'm big on authenticity. So if I hear the same person always saying, well, I asked God what to do today, or, well, I just asked God, or God will tell me. Really? Okay. I mean, that's great if it works for you. Like, I'm a little more, is it pragmatic, just more realistic? I'm the one who's got to get up, and yeah, I still need some of my self-will. I need to propel myself into things, like energy, but yeah, how is it different for me today? I'd like to think have had a spiritual change. I'd love to think that, it's a profound alteration, sure. Like, because the way I was living and how things were before is, I like to think, entirely different from how it is today. Is that a God thing? Is it a universe at work? Yeah, maybe. Okay, but I don't know. I just it's just the seeking of a God for me, and spirit has a lot to do with, it's going to be a life journey to find that. Like, I don't feel I ever arrive at like, okay, this is what it is to be connected to the universe. Oh, okay, this is what it is to be connected to spirit. Oh, okay, it's like a daily thing for me. It's a journey to try and evolve, try and be evolved and be an enlightened being, which is ultimately what I want to do. So it's a daily thing. And yeah, I try and check myself. Motivations, certainly, you know, reaching out to others, like getting out of my own head, because I like to obsess. And again, just the fears, like, why isn't she doing this? And why I shouldn't have said that. And like, why is this person acting that way with me? And, I spoke at I presented the 12 step at one of our workshops last month, and someone said to me, "Oh, you didn't do it right. You should have done this. Do you know that you should have read this?" And it's like, okay. And I just, sometimes, like, I'm sensitive to taking on other people's energy. Like, some people are like toxic, and it's just like, I'm not gonna, I did the best job I could. Like, I'll do better next time. Like, I don't know. And then I'm just sensitive to things. I'm sensitive to, as we all are. I mean, being addicts, alcoholics, we're just sensitive. We take on other people's stuff. People are sort of um, not codependent, passive aggressive with us. I notice it all the time, just people driving behind me, and they're all like, "Rrr," and they drive really close to me. Like, what are you trying to show me? Like, are people at the grocery store, they kind of like walk up to you, and it's like, I don't know. It's just, I just have a heightened sense of just ickiness sometimes around me. And so some days I really have to work against that, and realize that sometimes it's other people's stuff and it has nothing to do with me. And as they say, it's what other people think of me is not my business. And that's a good place to be, because I mean, I have to look at my behavior all the time. Like, how am I being in my relationship? How am I being in my relationship to the world? How am I acting with my mom? I look after her a good deal of the time up here when I'm not staying with my girl. So I kind of split my time back and forth. And it's really tough because my mom is critical and judgmental, and it's toxic, and she's, hateful of the world and worried and anxious. And so I go there and try and be the best son I can. And every hour or so, she dictates and is really critical. And it's just like, okay, just be a good son. Just, what is it she needs? How can I be of service? And then when I get back to my girl, and plug into that and leapfrog, half an hour away, and I'm at her house, it's like, okay, just, be grateful. It's easy to be grateful in this situation because I'm so thankful that I'm not at my mom's all the time. And I just am like, thank God for this special lady in my life that's been presented to me. And the only way I feel that I'm able to keep that is if I do the tenets of the program, the spiritual principles, which, as I said, it's a daily thing. And I have to work towards it every day and keep these things in my life, and be a better guy and do the best job I can and not beat myself up, because that's what I do as an addict, alcoholic, codependent, whatever the case is. I just live in that place of like self-pity, and I get down, and then things suddenly get dark, and oh, I was thinking this and I got excited about this. Now it's not working, and I get deflated, and suddenly I'm not so grateful. And I'm not grateful that I have a great place to stay and a nice big piano to play and food in the fridge and a car I can drive. And, some people today, they have no water and they have to hike an hour to get shitty water. So, I mean, looking at that, it's totally unrealistic and crazy to think that, I don't have it really great, but I get caught in my own head and have a hard time. Is it can't see the forest through the trees? I don't know. You can't see some kind of shrubbery, some kind of foliage. I don't know what it is. Anyway, I don't see things too clearly sometimes. And as they say too in the program, I can't differentiate the true from the false, because the way I look at things is kind of skewed. It's like looking through not rose-colored glasses, quite the opposite, like looking through really fucked up foggy glasses that are kind of, if I spot it, I've got it. Kind of like these glasses are looking in to me. And I don't know. Anyway, that's complicated and confusing. Don't know why I said that. Justin, how much more time do I have?
Need to be wrapped up in about 3 or 4 minutes.
Okay. So I was just going to do an animated dance number. Like, is that okay? Because but probably doesn't transfer well in the audio world. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I make these notes. When I go to meetings, sometimes someone will be speaking, and certainly I'll try and just open a document and make notes with things that resonate with me. That I don't know what I do with this document. It's just good. I have like 20 pages of stuff over the last 6 months that I've little snippets of wisdom from people that sound, I don't know, that I'm down with, that work well for me, that I can get on board with. Because as I said, it has to work for me. It has to resonate with me. It has to touch me. It has to make sense to me. I can't just show up and just, anyway, I'm just glad to be on the path. It's a journey. It'll never be over. It's a design for living, as they say. And it flows in and out. I'm lucky to be working with a couple people. Sometimes I don't feel I have anything to offer. Certainly, experience, strength, and hope. Okay, like what does that look like? My experience, 30 years of all the shit. Justin said, all the different places I've been, California and back, detoxes, et cetera, different programs. My strength, I think I'm strong. I'm resilient. I think I'm a tough kid. I don't think I would have gotten here. It's amazing the dangerous situations. Like in that sense, I have no idea how I got here and that I'm walking upright and have most of my body parts. It's pretty friggin' amazing. So that's experience, strength. And the hope aspect is, I truly think that my life can get better and there's things in store for me. I used to think, oh, what does it matter if I use, and I really have to live in today because I don't know, the next week, my health can go really quickly and that's it. But I kind of have the feeling of hope, and I like to transfer this to anyone I'm working with, is that, if I just keep doing the next right thing, the next indicated step, okay, what do I need to do now? Self-care, help others. What do I need to do? Trust God, clean house, help others. What can I do today? How can I stay out of self? Like all these things, little points to checklist. It's like a mental checklist. And I could be doing it a lot better. The 10th step, at night I'm supposed to, write down, put pen to paper, who did I harm today? Do I owe someone an apology? And also what did I do well today? Like, again, the beating up of self thing. Like, I don't want to just look at, how I could have done better or what was selfish or how I acted out. Like there's lots of good things in a day that I do. And I think even just one is not injecting heroin into my body. That's a good start. That's kind of a good start. So yeah, sometimes I just have to look at the most basic things and be thankful for like, wow, I'm glad I'm not sniffling out on the street, just trying to, find whatever money I can to just, consume substances that are killing me. So the fact that I am where I am, I like to feel grateful. I like to feel appreciative of the things I have. And with that, I'll end it.
Yeah, thank you so much, Timber. I really appreciate your share, your experience, strength, and hope there. I've written a few questions here. We've got a question coming in from the live audience already. And a reminder to our live audience, if you have a question for Timber, please type it in the Q&A link at the bottom of your Zoom window. Looks like 2 speech bubbles over the top of each other, and we will get to those questions as we go along here in the next 20 to 25 minutes of Q&A. So we're going to start out with a question from our live audience. This is from an anonymous attendee. This person says, I am also a highly sensitive person. And a little into their 20s, I felt absolutely everything. And now, through being dismissed and invalidated, I stopped feeling and numbed myself out. And I find it hard to lie in the middle. How do you deal with protecting yourself from other people's energies?
Um, yeah, good question. Because yeah, I hear the numb thing, going numb. Like I do that. I just did that totally recently. Like where I felt like I just couldn't show up in all capacities and manners of my life. I just felt down. I just didn't have the energy. I didn't feel grateful. I just feel like the way the toxic energy I was taking on with my mom was shitty, and like my stepbrother's weird and just is really, he doesn't appreciate all the stuff I'm doing with my mom, and he thinks I could do better and all this. Yeah, so they're talking about the energy around myself being sensitive, as you're saying, like how do you walk through life in a kind of, my girl says to me, like, Tim, when you're at your mom's, you got to put on that, it's like this inviso shield like you have around me. I think that's the way I look at it, and not like I'm not going to take on those other people. It's like having the confidence too to like be, and I don't know how to do it, to be okay in yourself. And like that's a lifelong thing too. Like that takes a lot of time because I've spent so much time like, no, like I don't believe in myself. I don't think that I'm correct in this. And I look to others to dictate my sense of worth. So like, yeah, on some days I just don't have the confidence to be like, hey, I'm okay. I'm doing the best I can. And that's their stuff and whatever. And so, yeah, I don't know if there's like this kind of trick. Like sometimes it's like metaphysical or just like a bipolar thing, like how I'm acting in the world when I get up and I go outside and walk around, and just how I am. Like sometimes it's just like a chemical thing. Like it's just some days just the sun shines on me and I had a good coffee and I just feel kind of, hey, things are okay. And I have a little more energy and a little more confidence to deal with things when they come at me, and they will. But yeah, it's just kind of, I kind of feel like I'm like a slave to my body and mind, like my overly obsessive thoughts and my self-esteem, my low self-esteem, and that piteous place I like to be where I just kind of feel down. Like I feel, yeah, like that's kind of why I have a program, because I just, even though I don't understand the program all the time or even think that it'll work, like if I do these steps and if I do this, like, like how is that going to help? Like sometimes I say like, so what? I'm going to make a list and, talk to people from years ago that probably don't even want to hear from me. And then I get critical. I get like, how is this going to help me? How is this like, okay, I'll look at my behavior at night and see what I did. And, in the morning ask, what can I do? What can I pack into the stream? Like that all makes sense to me. And I can do that. And the 12th step, like, take this to others, pay it forward. Like, how can I be of service? And so, yeah, a lot of the principles of the program, they do make sense to me. And again, it does have to make sense to me, because if it doesn't, I'm kind of screwed and I don't know. Yeah. Blah, blah, blah. So that's
Thank you, Timber. I appreciate that. I kind of want to follow up on that just a little bit. I mean, you mentioned there, hey, when things happen, and they do, you said, and things will happen in my life. So, you talked about 6 months ago or so, a wrench was thrown in your life and it sent you spiraling. What happens? What are you doing today differently than you have done in the past, so that when that wrench is thrown in your life, whatever that may be, it doesn't send you spiraling back into where you were, a little over 6 months ago?
yeah, that's a good question, because it's a practical question. It's like those are questions I like to ask someone, or I'll share at a meeting or with a sponsee. Like, what are you doing today? What are the actions that you're doing today that are different, that help you, that assist with this? What is it that you're doing different? How is it different for you today? What are the things you're doing? And so that's a good question. And so a valid answer is this. So there's a number of things, certainly like self-care, because if I'm not taking care of myself, then how am I going to help others? So, drinking water, like just getting out, being active, going to work out, going to the beach, having a swim. Like, so there's the physical aspect. That's something I do on a daily aspect. Like I've just got to be active, whatever that zeal activity thing is. Sometimes I played tennis this summer and I get on the bike. Like, so that's aspects. Or you get into, you have a bath each day, something that you reward yourself with, that you take care of self. So there's that. certainly the connecting with other people, because when I get in my disease and using, et cetera, it's all about self and secretness and not telling people. So as I said, the difference today is, instead of isolation, is the connection. So, just getting on the phone or WhatsApp and pressing the button and reaching out to a guy. Hey, how are you doing today? What's up? Haven't heard from you in a while, ... And again, I fall short all the time with that. I should be doing that a hell of a lot more. And there's no reason why I can't. So that's different. So certainly the physical aspect, self-care, the reaching out to others, certainly showing up at a meeting. Sometimes I tell myself, like, how's that going to help? I've heard all this stuff before, but again, there's some sort of magic in that. I don't know if it's a universal thing, spiritual, God, whatever, but there is a magic in chiming into a meeting, and suddenly you've got all these people all over different countries who have similar afflictions going on, and people are allowing themselves to be vulnerable. And yeah, that's pretty special. That's pretty good. So doing that. And if I have worked the 12 steps, if you people have done that, you reach out and you try and help someone else, and you put your number in the chat and say, hey, you know what, I'm available. So there's that. And the last part I would say is, now that I have a heightened awareness of these defects, shortcomings, flaws in my makeup, like, how am I going to adapt these principles in my day-to-day life, and check my motives? Again, is it selfish? Is it pure? Is it true? And that's every day. It's like, as soon as I leave here and make a call, it's like, oh yeah, I'm getting this thing. Is like that okay to do? It's like always just checking, because all my actions, movements, thoughts in the day, I have to check it against what's happening with my program. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you, Timber. And you've brought this up a couple of times. The is it honest? Is it pure? Is it unselfish? Is it loving? Talk to me about how you strive to exercise and implement those 4 standards, those 4 absolutes in your daily life.
Are you trying to baffle me and make me look bad?
No, no.
I don't know, Justin. Please. Yeah, like, how do I do those things? Like, yeah, again, like, it's checking the motives of them. You said loving, honest, true, selfless. What are those? Say the 4 again. Loving,
so loving,
honest.
unselfish, pure, and honest.
Yeah, so those are great check words. And I, sometimes I'll kind of throw that to the wind, and it's like, no, I'm just going to make this happen. And they talk about that in the big book, getting, it's all self, propelling self. And this is how I see myself. And I'm going to write this article, and lots of people are going to love it and look at me. And I'm going to get this agent in Toronto, and she's going to get me lots of jobs, and look at me. And, I start wrestling with it and making it happen. And, it's like, shit. I can't do that. That's icky and gross, and that's not going to take me anywhere except, grandiosity and ego. And okay, so I can't do that. So I'm checking something. So that's like a daily thing. It's like, I have to check, okay, is this, like anything today, like I'm going to visit someone after, is that like to check on them and say hello and to nurture a relationship? Or is it like, I'm trying to get something from them? I'm just going to visit them and pop in. It's because, I'm manipulative here, and I'm just trying to get something, and I want them to see me in a different way. So it's like, how am I going to be in this situation? Am I being honest with myself? Like, it's just all the time I check it. And sometimes I don't want to check that. I don't really care really if it's loving. Like, I'll justify and I'll do that rationale thing. It's like, well, at least I'm not using drugs. Like, isn't it enough I went there and helped out a bit? Like, it's like always checking. It's like this constant kind of balancing. It's like, what's the Greek thing with the balance? It's on.
I don't know what it's called, but I know what you're talking about. Yeah.
Yeah, the balance, the weights that go like this. Yeah. So it's like this constant checking all those things.
Yeah. Thank you, Timber. And we've got a follow up on that same question here from an anonymous attendee from our live audience. This person says, how do you work out if it's loving, honest, unselfish, or pure? As a blackout codependent, my focus is external on others. And before I know it, I'm burnt out. So what are your thoughts on that, Timber?
Well, I mean, if you're blacking out and you're codependent and using and can't even get to the gym or do anything physical, that's one thing. But again, I mean, there's lots of things you can do self-care, because again, if you can't take care of yourself, how are you going to help others? And the whole deal behind the program is helping others. Like Nikki will say, like someone will call in and they're like whining, well, this person, I'm getting divorced. And it's like, okay, stop right there. Are you helping others? And they're like, no. Well, have you gone to, so yeah, to help others, you've got to help yourself. And to help yourself, what that looks like, the physicality is like, breathing, doing some yoga, sitting and trying to meditate, turning off that friggin' head for 10 minutes and like just breathe. Like, again, like, I'm not saying that I do these things, like, be like me. I'm fixed. I know what to do. Like, I don't know. Like, I'm just a guy. I have no fucking idea. I'm just a guy who wanted to share some stuff today and thought it's like, hey, here's a great way to connect. Like, why it's like, can I really not show up for like 50 minutes and share like my life? So maybe one person hears it and feels somewhat like energized by it. And like maybe it speaks to them. Like that's a no brainer. Like I can do that. Like how great is that? Like I'll, I already feel good like doing this. This is pretty sweet and great. And I feel honored that, anyone's listening to me at all.
Mm. I'll get to this question that I've got for you about the spotlight, about the ego, about those things. But first, I want to ask this question that came in from our live audience from Zach. Zach says, "Hey, Timber, thanks for your vulnerability and sharing. I have a lot of negative self-talk. Could you please share your experience on developing a better relationship with yourself?"
Another good question. Yeah, like it's familiar for me to get in the negative self-talk, just like, and when I'm in it, like, I don't care. I don't want to hear from you. I'm not ready to be in any solution. I don't want to call my sponsor because I know what he'll say. Like, I don't want to hear it. I don't want to go to a meeting because I'm not good enough. I'm insecure. Like, I just feel shitty about myself. And so the question, like how do you get out of that? Like how do you leapfrog and propel yourself out of that? Like how do you get on a trampoline and bounce out from that bullshit? And I think the answer is like taking some kind of action, even if you don't believe it, because this has happened in the last few days, because I was in that place of like total negativity and not feeling grateful and just questioning myself and things aren't going to work out, like all that stuff. And so the way to go, I mean, I'm just sharing what happened this past week, is like just show up and do the act, even if you don't feel it. Just like I didn't want to take care of myself. I had this girlfriend of mine, she has a barber shop, and it's like I don't care about my facial hair and hair, but I just went anyway. And like, I met with her and she like, helped cut my hair and did my facial thing and stuff. It's like I could care less, but just go. You have a meeting, so just do that. Okay. And the other thing is, it's like, okay, I have like a counseling meeting at 1:00. I don't feel like going, and what's it going to do for me anyway? But I went. I took the action. I got in the car. I went. Why? Because sitting at home alone is shitty, and so I took that action. So the answer is like doing the action regardless of how you feel anyway. Like pick up that phone, or like just get out for a walk, or just do as I said, the next right thing, the next indicated step. Make a bit of a list, so it's like, okay, here's some things I can do today. Like I don't feel positive enough to even really contend with a lot of these things, and I don't know how I'm going to do them, but just make like a small list so you can like cross a few of them off and say, hey, okay, I did that, and make it really small, because if you make it bigger, you're going to feel like a loser. You're going to feel like shit, I can't even do this. And like keep it really small.
Thanks for sharing that. And I also appreciate the concept of doing the next right thing. Even if it's really small, it helps me feel like, hey, I've accomplished something. I'm not totally useless. I'm just mostly useless. Maybe I can do a little bit more and become a little bit less useless, and that's
that
what
I'm looking for. If I can just become a little less useless, that's a good funny thing. That's if I could just do some of these things and feel a little less useless, that would be good.
Love it. Love it. Awesome. And this next question that I have for you, I think it bounces off of that feeling useless and having this thing. I think for a lot of addicts, myself included, I'm either the greatest of all time or I'm the worst of all time. There isn't much in the middle. It's right there. And you've talked about, the egomania. You've talked about the spotlight and things that you've done that you say, hey, maybe I'm doing this just to stoke my ego. I do this podcast. I do several other podcasts. I seek the spotlight in so many areas of my life, and I'm trying to regulate that, I guess, with it being a character strength rather than a character defect of that. How do you look at things and say, I've been gifted this talent, I've been gifted these ideas, whatever, I'm going to share them without it becoming an ego type thing. How do you deal with that?
Yeah, good question. So, yeah, isn't that interesting that there's very little middle ground? It's basically like the inferiority, an egomaniac with an inferiority complex, right? There's very little like in between. This past week, it's either like the low, insecure, like this and that. I followed that down the rabbit hole, or the grandiose, as you talk about, egotistical. Look at me. My name is Justin, and I'm wearing a nice shirt, and I put my hair a certain way, and I have hundreds of friends, and I'm wearing special headphones, and I brushed my teeth all nicely. And look at me. I have lots to offer, and I'm spiritual and grand. Blah, blah, blah. Yeah, like I get that. And I think we need a bit of the ego, right? Like we are humans. So the question is like, again, you check those motives. We can share our talents. Like when I produce some music and I put it up on Spotify and Apple, like why am I doing that? Is it so people can say, "Wow, you're really talented and great"? Like I have to check, like, okay, why am I doing it? Like I sincerely and genuinely want people to hear the music, so maybe it'll touch them. Maybe they'll feel like, wow, that's really great. It spoke to me in some capacity. So it's always checking that thing, like, am I feeding that beast, like that part of me that just wants the attention? And yeah, like I get that. Like again, it's like checking, these artistic endeavors. I have these talents or special skills. Is it just to feed the ego? Because that always leaves me. This is one thing I always remember: is it leaves me sad, it leaves me lacking, it leaves me disappointed. I mean, I'm not saying that I'm not going to act out in it again, because I am, but it's keeping that at bay somewhat. Again, it's checking. It's like, okay, what's my relationship to her and the world and to myself? Like, is this okay? Maybe I'm getting a little bit so okay, I better bring myself down to earth a little bit. Maybe I should talk to someone else and have this conversation about, being this way and wanting to share my art. And like, is it just, and, checking yourself with others and checking. Yeah, it's constant. It's like this, we have obsessive minds, we think a lot. And I guess that's, having a program, whether it's meetings, reaching out to others, sponsor friends in the program, having the book to relate back to. Like we need something else other than just me. And we put ourselves in a position to be hurt, as they talk about, as I have many times, because I do the same shit, the same patterns, what's familiar, what I've been honing all these years. So of course I would bring all that to the plate. Like, why would I change after, so.
Mm. Thank you so much, Timber. Before we wrap up here, do you have any final words of wisdom that you'd like to share from your own experience, strength, and hope?
No, I don't. No, I could. I mean, I don't know.
Okay. But I do have one more question for you. How did you get into my head and speak all those things about myself, that I'm this, nice shirt and teeth and all these types of
Well,
things? Look at me,
because
look at me.
yes, because I'm human like you, and I play into that myself, and I'm quick. I like to think I'm quick, like spot on, and I I'm good at, like, I like to think I'm like assessing and evaluating what's going on for them, putting myself in their shoes, like all that is happening, which I think helps to make me a good writer. Look at human behavior. It's just, and it's normal. Those things aren't bad or negative. Those are things that just come up, and you obviously do a good job at kind of killing them, kind of suppressing them somewhat, because it's easy to fall into that place. You have a position of dot dot dot, and it could be about dot dot dot, but no, you've got to say, okay, this is about others. This is about helping others. This is about how can I contribute? How can I get out of my own head? I found a forum avenue. What what have you, avenue, to here's a place where I can plug myself in and see myself helping others and being and doing that. So I think that trumps all the other bullshit about shirts and white teeth and glasses and headphones and a nice pretty picture behind it.
Love it, Timber. Thank you. I appreciate it, man. And that is something that I focus on a lot, is trying to make sure that my motives are in the right place. And I appreciate you sharing your experience, strength, and hope with very similar things. I really appreciate your time and your willingness to share this. That was a great RICO 12 weekly speaker meeting. If we didn't get to your question out there in the live audience or in the podcast world, please consider joining our WhatsApp community and by sending an email to rico12pod@gmail.com. That's RECO12POD@gmail.com, and join in our community and ask those questions, answer others' questions that may come up. If you're inspired and want to share something of your insights in a 12-step type share, please consider going to the RICO 12 Shares SpeakPipe link that I'll put here in the chat here in a minute and record a 3 to 4 minute share there. That link is also in the show notes of the podcast. If you've not yet rated and reviewed this podcast in Apple Podcasts, please consider going to do so now. It's a great way to work our 12th step and sharing this message with others. Next week, we have Scott H. scheduled to speak on the topic of the 40 musts of the Big Book, and I look forward to it. Don't miss that or any of the other RICO 12 resources that will be released over the next week. Now let's launch off into the rest of our day with the 10th step prayer that Timber will say for us. You good with that, Timber? Or would you like me to do that?
Yeah, you can do that.
Okay, I will do that. Here we go with the 10th step prayer. I pray I may continue to grow in understanding and effectiveness, to take daily spot check inventories of myself, to correct mistakes when I make them, to take responsibility for my actions, to be ever aware of my negative and self-defeating attitudes and behaviors, to keep my willfulness in check, to always remember I need your help, to keep love and tolerance of others as my code, and to continue in daily prayer how I can best serve you, my higher power. Thank you, everybody. Keep coming back. It works when I work it. Let's trudge this road of happy destiny together. Work it. You are worth it.
There was a man put his hand by the side of his mouth, and he wanted to scream, but the sound never came out. So he reached for the bottle to wash the pain away, 'cause what he wanted so badly was to live a different way. And all of his problems and all of his pain filled up the puddle and rose with the rain. His ship kept on sinking to the bottom of the lake, and he knew for certain that he was just a fake, just a fake. Was a man put his hand by the side of his mouth, and he wanted to share, but only lies ever came out. So he reached for the needle to numb the pain inside, and the truth that he yearned for shriveled up and died. trapped on the